Hey guys, real quick, want to take a look at Qualcomm. This is stock we've been looking at for the last few weeks, and we bought it. We've been bullish on it for a little while now, and it's obviously paid off. A couple things I look at: longer term, 5-year weeklies. I look at different pivot points for changes in direction, where you want to be in the stock, where you want to be out of stock. I'm not going to dig into this too deeply, but in this pivot right here, I would have been out of the stock once it dropped in here, and it never regained this line until we hit the breakout here. Um, then a new trend line starts to form. Then you have a really strong upward trend. We go bottom of the candle to the bottom of the candle, and then you can see the breakdown up here along the trend line. You get some in and outs, and then another breakdown again. And real quick, just to finish up on the weekly, this pivot point where we broke out also just happens to coincide with support on the weekly chart pattern. Obviously, you have some tails through there, but we close above it both times on the weekly. So these pivot points I've been using for years do work. They were very accurate. They keep you in stocks and they keep you out of stocks when they're in downtrends. So these also coincide with some MACD crossovers. There's another one down in this area from this lower pivot, and then the MACD breakdown right up in here. So I'm going to show you on a 1 year too as well, and you can see we're just starting to peak up from a longer term perspective on the weekly, which is nice. So real quick, simple chart here, simple MACDs. Here's your crossover from another pivot. We could draw it straight down here in this descending trend line. We break above it. I'm sure if we had volume on this, I'm not going to show because it might skew the chart, but you have your MACD crossover. Now you're on an uptrend, so you can kind of hold the stock. If you draw a baseline across here in this area, as I zoom in, I'll show you where the stock started to break down, which also coincided with the MACD cross. So I'm just drawing quick trend lines here on our daily. The 56 area was support for quite a while. And then we started to break down. We didn't just start, we actually had a sharp breakdown with a MACD crossover back on April 11th. So change in direction, obviously we went down and retested the breakout pivot point. You would have been out of the stock right here, but you would have started probably watching it in this area here, and I'll show you what's interesting here as well. We bring up the MACD just a little bit. And although we have a lot of lower lows in this area, if you look at the MACD crossover here, it actually makes it on a day with the lowest low. Opening down here, but the first close, believe it or not, above the old pivot point, because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days where it tries to attack it. The one day you have the lowest low of all these days. You have the first close above it. Also coincides with the MACD crossover. And you've had a slightly bullish MACD trend with now expanding volume. It's never gone below and it's never crossed back over again. So here's your initial breakout on the MACD. We started buying the stock. Here's another break to the high point. I was actually bearish in here once we saw the breakdown below this trend line. And then I started watching it right in here. It got above it and I got interested and started scaling into it. So the next pivot point right in here was obviously some resistance. You can see it tested 1, 2, and then your third close above. So now we're looking really bullish here. And then you're getting back above your old high there, which is like right around 59. Kind of about where we closed today, just a little bit higher than that, which is nice. So we do get a confirming close above there. So real quick, here's the exact chart that we were using back then. You can see the very beginning of May, we did a close with a 20 and started attacking the 50 SMA. Here's your ascending trend line, breakdown there, and we started coming back up here. This is where we were buying it. Volume expansion, close above the 20, MACD crossover. And you can see the date was just the very beginning of May here. This is the post that we talked about, 5520, 5570. We're now stretch points above there. We have plenty of room. So, you can see the price where it was at 54.65 when we were buying it. So, nice little move so far, up about 10% almost. So now back in real time, we're at 59. You can see this is the area we were buying it at the 20 SMA breakout. Every stock trends moves along a different SMA, in my opinion, shorter and longer term EMA and SMA trend lines. I try to find the ones that match up best with stocks. 20s and 50s work good for Qualcomm. So you can see the test on the 50 here, test breakdown, go back up, and then here's your pivot breakout again. So nice expansion. We want to see the volume going up. We're seeing that. A couple things are a little bit concerning here, and I'll tell you what. Once we clear this chart up here, I want to show you also the longer-term moving averages as well. Real quick, adding the 100 SMA. This is a breakdown in here, some agitation, and then the drop. So now we get a 20 curling, the 50 flattening, and we're breaking through the 100 SMA. So everything's looking good for Qualcomm. And just to finish up a little bit here, here's your 200-day moving average. Um, got quite a bit above it, and obviously this tremendous breakdown, and you still got a little bit of room. 61.33 is your 200-day moving average, so a little bit of room to the 200, obviously. But here's one more thing that I'm looking at. A lot of times there's some odd symmetry and geometric shapes to different stocks. In fact, the whole market's kind of like that. Once again, if we go from our very low hanging close within a particular time frame and run the trend line across there, you'll see this is a gradual descending trend line. Obviously, you want to run it to this first low candle right here, and then it'll come across the next one as well. And you can see how they line up kind of. And that kind of lines up oddly enough. You always have this unique symmetry, it seems like, in the market. So, do realize that a slight movement on one end, it's just like pointing your finger across the horizon. You move your finger, a foot in front of you on the horizon, it's moving 50 miles. So, you have to be very careful. A lot of people on drawing their charts, they like to be, make things simplistic and draw it from here to here and then say, well, this is the resistance area. But you got to understand one little trade that could be slightly off here for 100 shares could throw off a long-term chart tremendously, 10 points or more. So we're just trying to get averages here. We're trying to get, basic geometric and lines in here and stuff. So there's no doubt somewhere in this area here between this and the 200-day moving average, you're probably going to have some resistance. So, maybe another 2 points to the upside. Obviously, there's some news over in Manchester overnight. The market's probably going to pull back a little bit in the morning. It's normally it wouldn't even matter, but we're a little susceptible here, a little bit overbought in the short term probably from the rebound that we had. So I would expect a little bit of a pullback in Qualcomm. You could definitely go back and retest this gap breakout in the 58 area, maybe in the 57s. Wouldn't be a huge problem as long as you hold that 56 and I'd say the 20 and the 50 SMA. I think we're good to go. So in closing, if you guys are still holding some Qualcomm off the recommendation, obviously you can start scaling out a little bit here. From a longer term perspective, it's completely different. We do have a MACD crossover on the monthly, so take a look at the 5-year again before we close this out. So on a 5-year weekly, I would say this is your pivot point where you broke to the upside. Same area down in here across here is where you break to the downside. You get the retest here. There's no doubt there's a lot of traders that would be stranded on a longer term perspective in this area here. So, like I said, the 60, 61 area here, 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 and now here is going to be some tough area to get through. We definitely got some room on the weekly from an intermediate term perspective on the RSI, so that's a positive. So finally, the 10-year, we want to see if this is a good investment from a longer term perspective on Qualcomm. Once again, I go with my pivots, top of the candle, top of the candle. Here's your breakout point. The breakout point right in here, if you want to draw a line across, where does it line up? 42.50. The lower candle back in February to the penny. Just about. Not bad from a monthly candle chart. Look at that, right across. Pivot, breakout. And there's your touch right there. And real quick, looking at the MACD, your breakdown on the monthly, you don't see it's kind of hidden, some divergence in there. Breakout on the monthly, and you have a little bit of a touch and go hopefully here. So even from a longer term perspective, I would say Qualcomm looks good here. So pretty simply, from a longer term investment perspective, I'd be scaling out of a little bit of Qualcomm here that we bought, a few weeks back, and you could probably replicate this trend line here and hold it from a longer term perspective, as long as obviously it's changed with time, but as long as you don't close it below that 54 area, 53.60, and that moves up in time. And I'm just going to zip through some things that I look at. SVXY, these are going to be a little hazy because I'm not zoomed in and focused on them. Breakout pivot, we've been doing this for a long time, using this trend line for a good perspective. Once you have the break to the downside, we start another pivot line. Big shoot up, break to the downside, another pivot line. We run lines from there and kind of gives an idea of where we're headed to. One area of resistance actually hit today. We could draw another trend line above here. And then from the breakdown, remember bottom of the body candle, this is your momentum line here. You can see where the momentum starts. and then you break down. So to get back on that momentum line, you're going to be getting up close to 157, 158, quite a little bit away. So you have some resistance right where we're at. We can draw some tighter lines in there too to give us some good ideas on where SVXY is going to top out at in the short term and how to trade it. Quick simple look at the pivot breakout without all the extra lines on SVXY. Boom, right to the bottom of the candle, bottom of the candle, bottom of the candle. Real quick, simple last chart we're looking at is why we bought Alibaba and why we love it so much still. Couple different pivots here and breakouts to the upside. I mean, you can see where this was. We were buying this in the 80s, like 88, 89, and we bought it again at 104. This little trend line bounce, touch and go here. And then we broke through some heavy resistance up in this area, and it's just been nothing but blue sky since then. But here's a pivot breakout here, and then a different descending line pivot breakout here. So you have 2 points in the 85, 88 area, 85 to 88 area from here up into here, and then another pivot breakout right around 92. But if I remember correctly, and I have to look back at my trading, if we were in this at around 88, 89, I think that's about where we got in. Then we kept adding along the way, and actually once we hit these areas here, we started scaling out a little bit. I think we got out a little bit more at 112, and we've been holding small positions ever since, and it's